Sea Shepherd was set up in 1977 as an anti-poaching organization because we have all the rules, the regulations, and the treaties that we need to protect our oceans, but we don't have any enforcement because of a lack of political and economic will on the part of governments. So I decided there was a need for an organization to enforce those international regulations. In 1975, we had come up with this idea to protect whales by putting our bodies between the whales and the whalers. And we knew a lot of Gandhi at the time, and we thought that this would be a tactic that would work. And Robert Hunter and I found ourselves in a small boat in front of a Soviet harpoon vessel. It was about 60 miles off the northern coast of California. And in front of us were 8 sperm whales that were fleeing for their life. And every time the harpooner tried to get a shot, I'd block the path of the harpoon and prevent the shot. And this was working for about 25 minutes. And then the Soviet captain came down the catwalk of the whaler and screamed into the ear of the harpooner, then turned and looked at us, smiled, and cut his finger across his throat. And that's when I realized that, you know, Gandhi wasn't going to work for us that day. And a few moments later, there was this incredible explosion, flew over our head and hit one of the whales, this female, in the back, and she screamed and rolled on her side. It was like a woman screaming. It was very, very haunting. And suddenly, the largest whale in the pod hit the water with his tail and disappeared and dove and swam right underneath of us. And he hurled himself out of the water straight at the harpooner on the Soviet vessel. But they were waiting for him with an unattached harpoon, and he pulled the trigger and hit him at point blank range, and this big bull sperm whale screamed and fell back in the water in agony, blood everywhere. And as he was rolling on the surface and I caught his eye, he dove again, and this time I saw a trail of bloody bubbles coming at us real fast. And he came up and out of the water at an angle so that the next move was to fall forward and fall right on top of us. And as his head rose up out of the water and I saw his eye appear, and I looked into this eye, and that's when I saw understanding that the whale understood what we were trying to do. And I could see the effort he made to pull himself back, and his head began to sink beneath the sea, and I saw his eye disappear beneath the surface, and he died. And so he could have killed us and chose not to do so. So I'm personally indebted to that whale for the fact that I'm alive. But I also saw something else in his eye, and that was pity. And not for himself, but for us, that we could take life so thoughtlessly, so remorselessly, and for what? What were the Russians killing these whales for? It wasn't for meat, it was for spermaceti oil, sperm oil used for lubricating high heat resistant equipment and machinery. And one of the things that they were building with this machinery is intercontinental ballistic missiles. And so I said, here we are destroying this incredibly intelligent, beautiful, socially complex, sentient creature for the purpose of making a weapon meant for the mass extermination of people. And that's when it struck me, you know, we're just insane, you know. And from that day on, I said, you know, I'm going to do this for whales and sharks and turtles and fish, but not for people, so I don't really care what people think about what we do.
It was midnight on the 2nd of February, and the Bob Barker and Steve Irwin were in position, guarding the slipway of the Nishin Maru, successfully putting a halt to the Japanese whaling fleet's illegal whale poaching operations. It was on this morning, in the early hours, that 3 incoming targets appeared on the Steve's radar. Both the Steve and the Bob had been travelling alone with the Nishin for 8 days, and it became obvious that the incoming targets were the harpoon ships, coming back to resume their illegal whaling operations. And at 12:45 AM, when most of the crews were still dressing in dry suits and preparing to defend their clients, the whales, the Yushin Maru veered recklessly across the bow of the Steve in an unprovoked act of intimidation and the beginning of events to follow. For the next 9 hours, from midnight to 9 AM, the harpoon ships surrounded the Sea Shepherd fleet, attacking both the Steve and the Bob through a strategized weaving circuit. Each of the 3 harpoon ships took turns approaching from behind, trailing long steel lines, and sweeping across the bows of our ships, forcing them to divert their course to avoid both the collision and the entanglement of the steel cable in their propellers. The intent of this attack was clear: to hold up our ships and allow the Nishin Maru to disappear over the horizon to continue its whale poaching operations. With each pass, the harpoon ship's attacks increased in frequency and veered as close as 3 meters to the bow of the Steve. On one particular pass, the Yushin 3 misjudged its distance from the Bob Barker, causing a collision, which resulted in structural damage to the inside of the Bob's bow. The whaling fleet's strategized midnight ambush diverted the course of the Sea Shepherd ships, with them making 86 passes, taking us on an exhausting chase lasting 9 hours and covering over 95 miles. But we will not be deterred. Sea Shepherd will continue to use its aggressive non-violent tactics against the Japanese whaling fleet, because these tactics have saved the lives of over 4,500 whales. We remember the images of the dead and butchered minke whales on the blood-smeared deck of the Nishin Maru only a month ago, and those lives matter. The difference between what Sea Shepherd do and what the Japanese whaling fleet do is that they are here to illegally poach whales in an internationally recognised sanctuary, and we are here to uphold international conservation laws where the governments of the world fail to do so. We will continue to answer to our clients, the whales, and until this illegal killing comes to an end, the combined crew of the Bob Barker, the Steve Irwin, and the Sam Simon will remain relentless.